expressed on this show do not reflect the views and opinions of our advertisers and management of Pacific Telestations Incorporated. You're watching Buzz with Jess Lujan.
Okay. Good evening, I'm Jess Lujan. Welcome to this edition of The Buzz. Exciting show tonight. I have Arthur Clark, who's the Governor's Chief Policy Advisor, and also John Knight, the Guam Solid Waste Authority Board of Directors. And we're talking about federal receiver tonight, and just all the money that's going towards the receiver at this point. Well, first of all, good evening, gentlemen. How are you guys doing? Okay. Let me just go back, because I dug some of my papers out from when I was still in the legislature and going back a little bit. Federal receiver, the consent decree signed in 2004, okay, if I'm not mistaken. The receiver was appointed, GBB in particular was appointed 2008. 2009, Gov Guam went out and borrowed the $202 million per GBB's recommendation. The receiver at this point, $120 million was to open Lejeune, $40 million was to close the Orda dump. Okay, the total cost of the people pay off of the bond would be about $360 million. Okay, over the span. October 2010, receiver reports $21 million under budget. Still the closure at ORDOT is $40 million. December of 2010, the receiver, a new Governor-elect Calvo, coming in, the federal receiver advises the governor about the consent decree and basically told the governor that there's at least $30 million that he estimates that there is going to be probably some money left, and that he recommended to use that for other capital improvement. Okay, April of 2011, estimates grew a little bit to $38 million. Okay, no adjustment to the closure of the landfill of ORDOT. 2012 of July, now the estimate dropped down again about $30 million for Lejeune. Now what got me here was May, a year later, May 2013, 10 months after he reported $30 million in savings, the receiver said there's not enough money for the project. Not enough money for the project. There's going to be $14.2 million post-closure monitoring, and then in November of 2013, the receiver reveals the cost estimate to close the closure of ORDOT is $65.7 million. Art. Now, this is, again, there's no intrusion. I mean, this is under 100% control of GBB, David Manning, okay? Nothing, no government intervention at this point. I still have a problem from the very beginning in this consent decree, in the supremacy clause, because, and correct me, you're a lawyer, that the consent decree is basically, it's not a judgment, okay? The supremacy clause is based on the violation of the Clean Water Act. That's the supreme law that's there. That's what we were in violation of. That was the supreme of all law, supposedly. But that was signed off by the governor then, Governor Camacho, and the courts, consenting to the decree, consent decree. It's not a judgment. Now, I think, again, it's going beyond the Organic Act, it's inorganic, to have the courts impose on a consent decree something that's not a judgment without the consent of the legislature that holds the purse strings. I mean, I said that on my way out of the 29th Guam legislature. I wish then that it was challenged at the Ninth Circuit Court, because I think we have a very good case in winning that, in the imposition of the supremacy clause, really abuse of that power. Your thoughts? And this numbers that are just, it reminds me of a drunken sailor.
Yeah, on photo. Let me deal with the last thing you brought up. I remember very distinctly during that time that you were making a lot of noise about that, and I really do wish that that issue was challenged back then. It's 5 years have gone by since then, so that boat has sailed. Sticking with the sailor theme.
Oh yeah, now.
Here's where we are. But that's a valid point. That the government of Guam signed on to, consented to essentially a judgment. They consented to it without the participation at that time of the legislative body, which actually is in charge of the purse strings and would have to.
And especially you're tapping into the general fund.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
Yeah. And why wasn't it challenged then? We brought this issue up very recently that I know we had the Attorney General's office that was representing the government of Guam until about a year ago when we asked to see correspondence between the Attorney General's office and the receiver. And then we got a response back from the Attorney General's office where it said, no, we don't represent the government of Guam anymore. We represent the receiver. Oh, by the way, we started that representation 2.5 years ago, just never told you. So we had opportunities, and there's no question, we've had missed opportunities to scrutinize what the receiver was doing, call the receiver's spending into question, and to have this addressed in court, but it was just never done. It was never done by the Attorney General's office. I think they tried very early on, and then the judge, so I understand, was not very happy about it, so they stopped raising the issue. And the judges also threatened the $1 million fines, and I think we were actually paying it back then. I think we got up to 8 weeks. We were paying $1 million fines. So, there was some attempt at opposition at the time, but that got squelched very easily. Going back to very quickly, going back to the numbers you brought up, actually that's a very accurate assessment. As you pointed out, the $160 million that was to go to open up the Lujan landfill and to close the ORDOT dump, that was a number provided to us by the receiver. And where the costs have really run away is on the closure of the ORDOT landfill. So the receiver, he basically said he was saving us money, 21, as much as $38 million, met with Governor-elect Calvo in November, December 2010, said, hey, I've got a windfall here of $30 million, what do you want to spend it on? Today he's saying, well, I always told people I didn't know what the cost was going to be, and we had to wait and see. But we've looked through his reports and his letters back then, and he was very clear that even after the adjustment on the ORDOT closure, there was going to be money left over. You pointed out the fact that we went from July 2012, a quarterly report saying there's $30 million left over, to May 2013, where all of a sudden we're out of money. What's interesting about that is those were the two most recent reports at that time. So there was actually, even though these reports are supposed to be done quarterly, there was a 10-month gap there. If anybody goes to the website, you can see that these quarterly reports, and they're still named quarterly reports, went from 4 times a year in 2009.
That's a quarterly report.
That's a quarterly report in 2010 to 3 times a year in 2011 to twice a year. I think those are called semi-annual reports, but and the gap between those reports are as far as 10 months, so almost a year. Those are annual reports, but and yet the receiver is claiming transparency. But still at the same time, it was clear that he was very adamant that he was going to save us money, and we were going to come out ahead on this. But where the cost really took off was on the closure of the ORDOT dump, where it went from $40 million to which is now essentially $80 million. And it doubled, and he has no answer for that. And what is most disturbing is, in addition to not having any answer, now he comes back and blames us for the overrun.
Well, one of the things is, as well as when he turns some of these things into the courts, is he not asking them to be under seal at this point too, as well?
Well, yeah, the cost. Actually, the cost of the ORDOT dump when he went from July 2012 to May 2013. From a $30 million savings. He didn't tell us how much it was going to cost now. He just said, we're out of money, we don't have enough money. And he wouldn't provide us the cost. He only gave it to the court under seal. Again, still claiming he's being transparent with the public this whole time. Do we know where that money is being spent? Because, I mean, you're a lawyer. I mean, you've faced judges before and sentencing and things like that, and almost even the most hideous crimes. Whoever is sentenced, there can't be cruel and unjust punishment, I mean, now in a consent decree, not a judgment, can we have just spending? I mean, spending like a drunken sailor and not accounting. And this is our money. Well, we were given a budget, and the budget that was provided to us is a $202 million. When it was all paid, $360. As we start to run the numbers now, given the shortfalls, it's probably going to cost us closer to $420 to $450 million. That's an extra $100 million that it's going to cost us.
Now, in saying that, and John, you can chime in on this. Now, saying that, the cost of them to pick up trash right now, okay? And we know as soon as they start charging, some people couldn't afford it. I mean, he said it might go up to $45. And we look at this when we're going, when we're at 360 million and now close to $500 million. Yeah. I doubt it if we're going to stay at 35 or even $40.
Let me address that $45. Actually, that is his proposal was $45 would pay for 100% of the bond. Now that we've run out of money, and that was his report in July 2012. After that, when it went over budget, now he said in one of the board meetings, he said no, his proposal was $45 to pay 75% of the bond.
Right.
Now
it was off by 25 points.
Well, and there was never a plan to pay 100% of the bond.
But you guys don't know what you're doing.
Right.
Okay.
But again, what he says is not supported by what's on file, what's on record.
Sure.
And a lot of the people, unfortunately, don't dig into what's published. It's on his website. All you got to do is look at these quarterly reports, as you have.
I've got it right here.
And you'll find it all. 100%. It was going to pay 100% of the bond. Now he said, I've always represented I was going to pay 75%. The original plan also, we're supposed to set aside reserves for new sales, to close the existing sales, open new sales for O&M, for equipment maintenance. All of that was in the budget, and then we went, when he said he ran out of money, he yanked the money in reserves. We're going to be spending all of this money, and these garbage trucks that we've bought, they have about a 7-year lifespan. There is no money under this plan being set aside in reserve to buy new trucks when those things start breaking in 7 years, because they've gone over budget. And it's, I hope we get into what he is claiming is the reason for us going over budget. He blames the government of Guam.
Well, we'll come back, because I'm going to put some notes right here, because I want to talk about that when we come back. He's blaming us basically what is written on law, and this was law way before he came on board. He's blaming the government's laws, that roads now have to be fixed, and he says, hey, look, the government did this to us. And it was there before he was even thought of, before he even left Gatorville. We'll be right back.